All right. The next one is all about emotions. We all know emotions. We're human beings, of course. But we never have the guide towards emotions when conducting business, building a new product. How do we know, is happiness the end goal? Can we use anger to our advantage? Should we overcome fear or perhaps not? Nikolas Xenofontos is here with a presentation called Welcome Fear, the emotional journey in building anything.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, everyone. To those of you that are traveling to Cyprus from abroad, welcome to Cyprus. My speech is a bit different and less colorful than Evgeny's. The title is Welcome Fear, the emotional journey in building anything. And what I will try to communicate is that there is the hard part, the logical part, the hard skills part that is involved in building anything, a brand, a product, a service. But then there is the emotional part, the emotional journey, which in my experience in building different things, it is not as much talked about, but it's very, very, very important. We're gonna go through 4 emotions that I have understood to be the most important ones to recognize, accept, so you can hopefully manage them. My name is Nikolas Xenofontos. Just a couple of things about myself. I did a mistake. So I was born and raised in Cyprus, Limassol, Cyprus. I have studied and lived in Limassol, in London, in Nice, in France. And academically, in my studies, I studied investment and financial risk management. I did an asset management master's, and I was effectively trained to become a risk manager. Now, in my career, I did a lot of risk management, mainly market risk management and financial risk management. But I got also involved in marketing, in product design, in training, and in strategy. The speech is about a journey, and my journey has seen me build different things, different companies, different brands, 4 of which are Salvus Funds, which is a regulatory compliance consultancy firm, the Institute for Professional Excellence, which is an online education platform for professionals by professionals, Finvus, which is a regulatory technology company, and Future, which is being built now to be a payments company. The most important thing I have built in this journey, it's the team, the great team that creates this, and they are there. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to emphasize that what I'm about to present is agnostic. It's agnostic to the industry, to the product, to the service. It doesn't matter if you are a founder, a team leader, a team member, if you are a solopreneur. The emotional journey is real. So this is applicable. So Welcome Fear, the emotional journey in building anything. The little logo was created a few years ago. It's a voodoo doll, but it's smiling because it welcomed fear. I must be doing something wrong with this thing. So you may be wondering, why so emotional? Okay. Now, have a look at the bottom right corner. It's a little elephant, and I'd like us to go through an analogy, the analogy about the rider and the elephant. You probably came across this analogy before. For me, I was introduced to this analogy in a book by a psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, in which he said that he argued that we have 2 sides in our behavior. The emotional side, which is our elephant, and the rider side, which is, the logical side, our analytical, rational side. In his analogy, the rider sees the path. It's logical, it's detailed, it knows where it wants to go. They know the destination and the path. But the rider is riding the elephant, and the elephant is providing the power for this journey. Now, this sounds like a perfect match, right? The rider and the elephant. Well, it's not always, but it can be. The challenge, our challenge, is that the elephant that is powerful and provides the power for this journey is also irrational. And it is the part of our behavior that is driven by emotion and instinct. Both the rider and the elephant are important. Without the elephant, the rider cannot get to his destination. Without the elephant, the rider cannot get far. This is a concept that you may have come across in different parts of literature, and in particular the two books I'd like to mention here. It's Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, where they call this System 1 and System 2. And another book I really like, The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters, which talks about the human brain and the inner chimp. No matter how these two sides of our behavior are described, the emotional aspect is real and it's valuable if you can manage it. The analogy also made its way into a book called Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard by Chip and Dan Heath, where it says that perched atop the elephant, the rider holds the reins and seems to be the leader. But the rider's control is precarious because the rider is so small relative to the elephant. Anytime the 6-ton elephant and the rider disagree about which direction to go, the rider is going to lose. He's completely overmatched. So when it comes to building anything, it is as much about the rider as it is about the elephant. Maybe it is even more about the elephant. Remember, 6 tons. Okay? So, in case you don't feel convinced, you feel you're unconvinced, you don't see the elephant, you should look closer. If you want to understand success in building anything, you can't focus on what's visible. Now, I had this little effect that was really cool, but because I cannot really control the remote, it doesn't do as well, but you get the picture. So, now that we have dressed the elephant in the room, let's get to the emotions, the feelings. We're going to talk about 4 emotions: pathos, happiness, anger, and fear in this emotional journey of building anything. Welcome, pathos. So pathos is a Greek word that in English can be translated to passion. It is defined as great love and enthusiasm for something, total devotion, great energy and determination to achieve some goal. This is the emotion that gets you started and keeps you going. So it's the first emotion we look into. If you don't have pathos, if pathos is not present, you cannot start. And if you somehow do start, you cannot keep going on for long. It is the trigger, it is the ignition for your engine, it's the drive that drives the elephant. Now, there is a very, very beneficial side effect of passion. Passion is contagious. So if you, for example, you're passionate, you're genuinely passionate and you're within a team, this is contagious. People will feel it, people will be positively influenced by it. I was thinking that I wanted to share a really cool example with you, a real life example of how contagious passion is. And I just thought that many years ago, I came across a video on YouTube called Sasquatch Music Festival 2009, Guy Starts Dance Party. I don't know if you came across it, but it's the greatest example of how contagious passion is. So, spoiler alert, this guy is topless, he's in a festival, he starts to dance on his own on a grassy hill, and within 3 minutes, the whole festival join scheme. Do watch this video, not now, please, but do watch it. It just demonstrates the point very well. So, if enthusiasm and passion are present, we tend to be more resilient when encountering obstacles. And like most of you know, there are many obstacles in building anything, from a startup to a new feature. If we are passionate about what we do, rather than just in it for the money, it just helps us have a more positive outlook, overcome difficulties, setbacks, and disappointments. Now, at the beginning I mentioned this definition of Pathos as great love, enthusiasm, and total devotion, but it can also be defined as a barely controllable feeling. Barely controllable can very easily become unbearable. It can become overwhelming. You can become impossible to work with. The only remedy to overcome the danger of having pathos from a productive feeling into an unproductive feeling, it's to be honest with yourself, to be aware of this reality that you can actually cross that thin line and become an impossible person to work with. And if you are part of a team, you should openly talk about it and openly ask them to challenge you whenever you cross that line, which we are all, potentially able to cross. So welcome Pathos in the emotional journey in building anything. Recognize its value, accept its potency, and manage it. We're moving on to happiness. So, have you seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness? It's with Will Smith. So, Pursuit of Happiness, great movie, great story. It's a real story, but I have a problem with it. I don't believe the pursuit was about happiness. I don't believe what Will Smith was going for was happiness. We are not designed to be happy. We're not even designed to be content. We're designed to survive. I'm not here to put you down or make you feel miserable, but a state of contentment is discouraged by nature because it lowers our guard against possible threats for our survival. What does this mean for someone that is building anything? The feeling of happiness should not be the reason for which you're building anything. So if you are sitting somewhere not feeling very well and you think you should build something to feel better, I would ask you not to do that. I would ask you to go for building anything because you see value, you see a solution, you believe in it, but don't focus on happiness. I even feel that if you're happy, you do not build anything or you do not build great things. Great things are built out of disappointment, hunger, frustration, and antagonism. Like I said, I'm not here to tell you to be miserable, but I'm here because we're in the context of building things. I'm going to ask you to consider the following. So doing great work and building great things can be tremendously rewarding. This is a reward in itself. If you build something expecting to find happiness, you will most likely be disappointed. It's not what you feel during building something. You feel many beautiful things, but not happiness. Building anything is painful. It is building something, irrespective that it is painful, that could eventually make you happy, not the other way around. Happiness is a byproduct of your overall life's conditions. Improving your life's conditions is worthwhile. Improve your life's conditions. That's where happiness comes in. So welcome happiness in the emotional journey in building anything. It is not the reason for which you build something and should not be anticipated. It is a very, very welcome byproduct. Now anger. So, first pathos, then happiness, now anger. We said without pathos you should not start. don't start. You will not last either. I also ask you to consider happiness as something not to be pursued and only be welcome as a byproduct. But anger is a feeling you will certainly feel, okay? So you better understand anger. I think of anger as motivation. Sorry. So I think anger as motivation, okay? It's an emotion that prepares us to fight. Anger is an emotion that prepares us to fight. It doesn't mean that we're going to fight necessarily with punches. It can be a fight for an improvement. It can be about building the next grade up. It can inspire communities to fight injustice, and it can improve people to inspire people to improve their status. Or it may be about throwing punches. So exactly because it can be a very motivational feeling, but also it can be a very damaging feeling for you and everything around you, anger should be controlled. I have some practical advice, the most practical advice from all the feelings when it comes to dealing with anger. And the first one is never complain. Always consider that it is your fault. Now, I'm not saying this to stop you from having expectations from other people, but if you consider that anything that happens is your fault, you are focusing on the only person you can really improve, which is yourself. Work for the best, expect things to go wrong. This will help you think of alternatives before you have to find alternatives. This is tremendous. If you can think of alternatives before you have to find alternatives, a lot of anger just goes away. Treat everything that happens as something that will happen again and again. Now, this helps you to anticipate and preempt mess-ups. If you send an email on Monday and on Tuesday you had to follow up, and on Wednesday you had to follow up, do not consider this an isolated bad experience that just frustrated you. Consider that those follow-ups had value, and the next time you're going to send a similar email, you should include whatever was the second and third follow-up about to try to eliminate that unnecessary follow-ups. And finally, consider anger as one of those things that people say something along the following lines. Anger is a good servant and a terrible master. Keep anger as a good servant. So welcome anger in this emotional journey. This is a natural, common, and certain feeling to experience. Seek to understand its source and use it to fight for good. And finally, welcome fear. Fear is the emotion I chose to include in the presentation. And it's for me the most important feeling to recognize and accept. So how do you visualize fear in your mind? Is it a spider? Is it a teddy bear? Is it public speaking? Or is it a snake? Now for me, I have a fear of height. And I use this image to show something very high, which are mountain peaks. Last week, I was somewhere skiing, and for me to experience skiing, I had to get on some lifts that scare me. I had to go on some cliffs that scare me. Now, I was able to overcome that fear, and I was able to enjoy this beautiful experience. And to me, especially the image of the mountains has an added metaphor that you should climb that mountain. For me, it has to do with my fear of heights, but climbing that mountain gives me, that beautiful view, that beautiful experience. I wrote something 8 years ago for myself. I don't know it by heart, so I'm going to read it for you because it's the whole reason I titled this speech, Welcome Fear. So, how do you visualize fear? A hairy beast with lumps on its back, bad breath, and violent intentions? Irrespective of what fear looks like, feels like, or even sounds like, fear is always found in the same place. Fear is within you. Take a moment to appreciate the obvious point here. If fear is within you, fear is part of you. This is the moment. I'm very interested in honesty and in being honest. First of all, with myself. You should fight fear, right? Wrong, I say. Fear is part of you, your creation, along with biology and psychology. And it would be dishonest, not to say futile, to fight here. Recognize fear, understand its roots, and use it as your greatest and most cynical ally in getting further. Fear is not here to stop you, it is here to warn you. New places, new faces, new roles, new dreams. Fear will guide you through them if you are honest. Fear does not exist in comfort, stability, and safety. Unfortunately, growth, opportunities, and experiences do not exist there either. If fear is present, so is life. If fear is present, so is living. Congratulations for being alive and honest. Thank you for taking this journey with me. We addressed the elephant in the room, and hopefully we have helped the rider get to their destination. Pathos is the feeling that gets you started and probably can keep you going. Happiness is not something you should pursue in building anything, but it's a very welcome byproduct. Anger can motivate you to fight for a good cause, but it can also destroy everything around you. Keep anger as a good servant. And fear, the emotion I chose to use in the title of this presentation, is for me the most important feeling to recognize and accept. It's the feeling that leads to growth. Once again, welcome fear. Thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Nikolas Xenofontos, Managing Director of Salvus Funds. Any questions, please?
Thank you very much for this presentation and for bringing up such an important topic. My name is Anastasia, and I wanted to ask, so not a lot of people in the business community right now, it is not common to talk about emotions and to acknowledge that we are human beings, and even when we try to make rational decisions, we are still riding this huge elephant and we still have our emotions. I know there are some companies that are trying to move towards this new era of recognizing we are humans, we have emotions, and they do affect whatever we're doing, no matter how hard we try to lie to ourselves that they're not. What is the best way to start bringing this into culture of corporations that have been focused on rational things and on, like, neglecting the fact that employees, users, everyone has emotions? What is the best way to start incorporating it into building it into the culture, to pay attention to it and to benefit from knowing that our emotions are affecting a great deal of what is happening?
Anastasia, this is a great question. In your question, you mentioned culture twice. So it's a thing of culture. Whether emotions are recognized as being real and extremely powerful or not, it's something that you cannot force anyone to realize. But I would argue that anyone that has really worked on building anything, if you really think about that journey, you have probably felt the four emotions I'm talking about, and you have probably either suffered or thrived because of them. So exactly because emotions are an emotional subject, you cannot really push it down the throat of anyone. People need to feel it, people need to experience it. And once they do, hopefully, they will be able to open up and talk about it. But when it comes to companies, I strongly believe in culture. And I believe it's a thing that doesn't happen in a day, but can be nurtured. So if someone stands up and says, I feel totally frustrated, and I'm dealing about this in this way, this can start a discussion. Of course, you need to find other people that are believers of this, but like I said, it's not gonna be difficult to find other people because this is something we're all facing. Nobody is immune to this, and really, the elephant is super powerful. So the answer is culture, but culture needs nurturing and it needs time.
Thank you, Nicola. Any more questions, guys? I have a question to you, Nikola, a bit of a personal one. So what are some of the fears that you've encountered during your career path?
Some of the
fears.
fears. So forget the fear of height. That's personally has to do with skiing. Very early on, public speaking. Standing for the not popular opinion in the room, expressing that. What else? Fear of failure. I had a very good track record for many years in different things, and sometimes that very good track record can make you not a slave, but kind of limited in being afraid to take the extra step outside your comfort zone because there is a real chance you're going to fail in that one, and it just kind of feels like you're spoiling that perfect shit. But it is not. It's actually very liberating. I still remember the day I failed massively and how free I felt after failing so massively. So those three things. It used to be, disagreeing with what I thought to be the popular opinion in the room, public speaking, and just being afraid to destroy potentially a very good track record.
Thank you for sharing. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, Nikolas Xenofontos.